everyone, I'm Sloan from SloanBella.com, and I'm back with another energetic channeled video. This video is on a very well-known actress who died in a very public way. Cameras caught her car driving down the street, going off the road, going back on the road, going off the road, and eventually hitting a house, catching fire, and her being transported to the hospital in critical condition and eventually passing away a week later after her organs were donated and they took her off of life support. So I'm talking about the late actress Heche, and she was born on May 25th of 1969. She is a Gemini sun with a Virgo moon conjuncting Pluto, which is retrograde. We also have Neptune retrograde. We have Mars retrograde. We have Mercury retrograde. She has a stellium in Virgo. She has Uranus and Jupiter in the 12th house. Uranus is retrograde. Retrograde planets are do-overs. It's like, oh, I want to get it right in this lifetime. So you're sent back down here. I don't advise doing that. Anyway, you're sent back down here and you are reliving certain aspects that those planets carry in order to see perceptually correctly on a soul or spiritual level. Now, her Mars is also retrograde in the sign of Sagittarius. She has a lot of oppositions. She also has trines. She has a water grand trine. She has a T-square. She has a stellium in Virgo. She's a very dynamic energy, and she's a very truth-seeking, energetic person. With a stellium in Virgo, it's highly unlikely that she's going to go around lying. She just can't. Virgo is on the point of being directly honest and brutal with their honesty. Their psychic ability is tremendous. I don't think she maybe called herself psychic, but she has an exceptional psychic ability and an ability to communicate with the dead. She is actually, I'm talking about, is actually born with Mercury in the 8th house retrograde conjuncting the sun in Gemini, which gives her a direct communication to the other side, along with the moon conjunct Pluto retrograde. Also gives her a fierce need to be in control of everything on an emotional level because of that Libra rising. That Libra rising is the downfall of her chart, in my opinion, because Libra comes in to learn balance and to equate their world around them with an ability to balance and flourish within that balance. Well, how do you learn balance? If you're born balanced, then you're balanced. If you're born into chaos, you are unbalanced, and therefore you have to learn how to create balance within your circumstances in order to survive. And that's exactly what her chart represents. Along with Neptune in the 1st house, halfway through we go into Scorpio with her. So she had the Libra Scorpio. I really see like a Scorpio undertone with her, with Mercury conjunct the sun in the 8th house and then the Pluto moon conjunction. And I see Neptune in the 1st house in Scorpio. That's a generational thing. So groups of people have that, along with the Virgo, Uranus, and Pluto. All of those things are generational to a group of people. It's like we all come in to do the same thing at that time. Anne was in my peer group, meaning age-wise, very close in age, proximity. So our generational planets will be the same. But that Neptune in Scorpio retrograde hitting her 2nd house cusp from the 1st house, one, doesn't allow her the clarity that she needs to understand her own power. And number two, it brings her back into a profession and a belief system and a foundation, 2nd house, and values. It brings her back to a subsequent lifetime where she experienced these same types of things, and she's learning how to understand them from a philosophical viewpoint. Now, having said all of that, I want to get to the energetic point of this because it's so interesting. Reading about her background, I don't know much about her other than I do remember the scandal with Ellen, and I do remember that she dated Steve Martin, which was so interesting. She went from one to the other, and I couldn't figure it out. I was never a huge fan of Ellen, so that I was on her side with that, because I've heard things about Ellen throughout the years about the way that she treats people. So I was figuring that if we were to look back on her relationship, which I believe was in the 90s with Ellen. We would probably call Ellen a toxic person to Anne, and so therefore Anne's reaction to Ellen, although they blame shifted and scapegoated Anne in that particular relationship. And her podcasting partner, Heather, I do know Heather on a personal level, and actually Heather had asked me if I wanted to do a reading for her business partner, which was Anne. And for some reason I declined, and I believe it was in midway through 2021. I just didn't feel like doing it. I just didn't want to do it, so I never responded. Something in my body, I follow my body strictly. So whatever my body registers, whether everybody says, oh my God, it's great, do it. I'm like, nope, I'm not gonna do it. If I don't wanna do it and it doesn't feel authentic to me, I'm not going to do it. Now, getting back to what I witnessed when I looked at the video footage of Anne driving down the street, immediately the car to me was on its own energy, not being driven by Anne, even though I don't know who was driving it. You can't see in the video. What I mean by that is, on an energetic level, there were several different layers I could feel coming off of that car. And one of them is that somebody was high-stepping it down the road, having fun, but that it wasn't Anne. So I'm going to get to that in a second. Now, if we listen to the reports and we believe what's said, which at this point in our life, I don't think many of us believe anything that anybody says anymore, even with video footage. She stopped, she went to her podcast, she did her show. She drove home, stopped in Venice, picked up a wig, and the guy said she didn't appear to be high or drunk or anything like that. And then she got into the car, and it was within about 12 miles, maybe 10 miles down the street. She ends up being pulled out of that car, which is then in flames after hitting the side of a house, and she's transported to the hospital. Okay, so here's what I want to do. I want to back this up. Now, remember, she's a Gemini sun. Gemini rules the twins. There's always 35 different personalities in any Gemini, okay? Like, I don't care what they say. There's always so many different personalities in Gemini in and of itself. However, what I did pick up from Anne, and it's not specifically saying that she understood or knew this, but I have felt this from other people. First of all, I think she was born with all these retrogrades in a reincarnation trap. So I think she was pulled back down here. What I feel when this happens to people is I feel there's a belief system, and the belief system is a particular way due to their family environment, the way that they're raised. And that belief system keeps them on a repetitive cycle, and they are easily restrained when they cross out of the physical body and brought back into a new body. Okay, I mean birth and death and reincarnation. So just like the Hindus believe birth and death and reincarnation. Okay, that's what I'm talking about, the reincarnation of the soul. However, in this particular instance with Anne, I do believe her childhood trauma, what she speaks about, what she talks about, okay, because of that Neptune in Sagittarius on the second house cusp, I actually believe that the family foundation that Anne grew up with was already involved in an elite ritualistic type of lifestyle to begin with. Call it whatever you want. She's described the child abuse, the trauma, the experience of that trauma, how it's triggered her in life, how she's been put in positions, etc. But I'm literally saying, imagine if you were her parents, and there's power struggles all over her chart. She has a huge T-square in her chart too. So there's a lot of power struggles. She's got Saturn in the 7th. This affects every relationship she's in. In fact, that Saturn in Taurus in the 7th causes her to be in relationships, not just lovers, business partnerships, friendships, parental, any kind of outwardly relationship, not to the self, but with others. This causes her to build a foundation of security through that Saturn in Taurus, okay, through security in the foundation, but she has to build it from the ground up. And a lot of times they're not recognizing their own sense of self, so they are achievers and they look a certain way in life, and the way that they look makes other people steal their sense of security. That's what I feel happened with her throughout her whole life. In early childhood, this is what I tapped into. In early childhood, I feel like her parents operating on autopilot. This is kind of like people who go to the bar every day, they drink 3 beers, they drive home, they don't remember how they got home, they cook dinner for their kids, they couldn't fucking tell you what happened. they're on autopilot, meaning they do the same repetitive action and it's second nature to them, kind of like getting up and going to the bathroom in the middle of the night. Like you're not really thinking, geez, I have to get up and go to the bathroom. You just know, and you get up out of bed and you go to the bathroom, right? Or you brush your teeth, or you do whatever it is you're doing. Her parents were on energetic autopilot. They raised their children to harness their energy without knowing it. So the parents were part of the project, is what I heard. The parents were part of the project. Do you see what I'm saying? There was a certain energy to the family dynamic that was on display, and the display that it was on had a lot to do with what the parents chose to come back as in this life, okay, when they had Anne. And I don't feel Anne was privy to this. I don't feel she knew this, but I do know the trauma happened between the age of 2, actually 1.5, and probably 4.5 for her. She's pretty much nonverbal for a majority of the trauma, which is what caused so much trauma. It's bad enough if you're an adult and you're traumatized by somebody when you're 10 and you can say this guy touched me or this woman did this or, you know, whatever it is. But she was a non-verbal child. I feel this happened to other members of her family, meaning I don't feel she had the words to communicate it, which would be absolute torture for somebody who was as mercurial as her with the Gemini and the Virgo in her chart. She would have a huge problem with that. That's why the moon is conjunct Pluto retrograde, okay? That's why that happened in the 11th, coming up on the 12th house, because this was the environment that she lived in. This was where she lived, okay? So in the community, it's communal in the 11th house. This was the undercurrent of energy shifting about her. This is what that was. Now, interestingly enough, I feel that what happens a lot, I read somewhere that she felt like she had 2 different people in her, and she felt like she was from somewhere else. So I'm just going to say this. I've had several experiences with people in positions of celebrity and very well-known celebrity, where they will talk about, when they are able to, meaning they're grown-up adults, they will talk about the energy of somebody coming into them that they don't understand. Like, and they'll use the word demonic. I feel the demons chasing me. Some people believe that demons are aliens. And so what I actually feel happened to Anne is very early on, pre-verbal, when a child is not verbal, that she was split and another energy was harnessed. With that Virgo stellium in her chart, she's compartmentalized in her mind. Anyway, okay? She's compartmentalized. So on an emotional level, she keeps all things hidden, and it's very, very compartmentalized so that she doesn't have to remember A, B, C, and D. Only if she has to deal with A, B, C, and D does she hook into that energy. So it's very easy to hide somebody else within the context of her spirit body because she was traumatized. So what do I mean by traumatizing the physical body in order to harness the energy of another entity outside of a human being? People just will not believe that this happens. It absolutely happens. And I'm going to give you an example of how that happens. Maybe not everybody's aware of this, but I'm sure we've seen crazy crackheads on the street. I always use this example. When they look at you and they talk to you, you can see who they might have been, but then there's this other energy that steps in front of them and they act crazy and wild. Their hands are flailing and they're not talking correctly because they used a drug which opened a doorway and something stepped in. So the energy of the human being, the soul energy, is pushed to the back. When she is driving that car down the street, I absolutely can see energetically, okay, in my mind's eye, that there is something else driving the car. In other words, her mind and her focus is not on the vehicle, the car, or what's around it. She is out of control. It's like a remote control train running down the street and nobody having the brakes for it because you can't find the person with the remote control. The person with the remote control that I'm seeing in this instance is an entity that stepped into her and wants to focus to move this forward, okay? So this is part of the problem. And this is part of the reason that Anne had such an issue. First crashed, backed up, and drove. She can feel the energy coming at her of this thing trying to get in her, trying to take her over. So just imagine if you had a big, huge estate. Now look at the estate or the mansion like the physical body. And you opened your front door to get the newspaper and something ran in the front door. And you could feel it trying to take over your room by room, the kitchen, the dining room, the hall closet, the downstairs bathroom, the pool room, the upstairs bedrooms. And you kept running from room to room and slamming and shutting those doors. But it kept opening those doors and coming through. That is how I feel she was driving that car. I feel as if she was being energetically chased because she understood that if she gave in, it was going to be the end of her. This is what I believe. I believe that she understood this was going to be the end of her. Now, a lot of these occult families or a lot of these families that are reincarnated and caught in a soul trap come back down. Their memories are erased. We don't have memories of past lives, most of us, right? But we didn't just show up here, spark up like a plant, like, hey, here I am. I'm just here to live this one life and then disintegrate. No one gives a shit. That's not the purpose. If anybody's had a baby, if anybody's, done certain things, then it's very understandable that things shift and change throughout life and that this isn't just the first time we've been here. I mean, it's obvious if you just observe the world, it's obvious. We have no memory. So imagine if you're born into a family that's been captured as slaves several times due to generational curses. So let's say you had a family member back in the 1700s that was so wanting to have money and 3D things and earthly possessions, fake at the early 1900s, that they sold out their genetic lineage to the masters who may not actually be human. And I'm not even joking when I say that. So they keep reincarnating here and you have a baby, you fall in love, you do all of these things and you think, yes, I'm doing what I'm here to do. But nobody stops to think when they're 20 if that's actually what we're here to do. Because we have no memory that tells us this is what I'm here to do. I'm here to work 9 to 5, make money, etc. We all have goals and desires. Some people want to be athletes, nurses, doctors, stay-at-home moms, librarians, whatever it is. However, in Anne's case, I feel like she was literally born into a programmed family. And I feel like that family harnessed her energy through the trauma bond early on in life. And I'm talking about ritualistically, although not under the guise of ritualism. Okay, so I don't think anybody in the family would say it was ritualism. I think they'd say it was drug addiction, mental illness, closeted behavior, all kinds of things. However, I feel like this is energetic ritualism used on a nonverbal child to fracture the mind in order to house secret energies within the context of the soul body. And I feel like that's what she was struggling with. I do in no means feel that this woman was wrong in what she said or did in her life. I feel literally like she was programmed. We look at people like they're mentally ill, like they're this, like they're that, and that's not what's going on really. When you can see the harnessing of the human being and the soul, because the end game is the soul. And that's what they were trying when they were trying for her. There's a discrepancy when that car is driving down the road. Energetically, it literally feels like there's a robotoid in the car driving. What do I mean by that? Okay, so when an energy, let's say you don't even have to drink and smoke. If you're depressed and sad and wallowing in self-pity, energy can come into your body that isn't of the light, isn't of the Christ consciousness. When that happens, okay, you can have an entity step in and it can look through your eyes, and you'll have no memory of this. So you'll go about your day, and for 10 minutes in your day, something is looking through your eyes, and they're not in human form, but they want to feel what it's like to be in human form. So they drink and drug and party and eat and fuck and scream and fight, and they drive wildly down the street. Also, immediately what I got from the car driving down the street, so let's say, because there is a resurgence of devil's breath out there. And what is devil's breath? It can be formed and morphed into something called scopolamine. Scopolamine is like Ambien. It's not actually like Ambien, but because it comes from devil's breath. But Ambien is a sleep aid that is a hypnotic. Scopolamine is a hypnotic and a suggestible hypnotic. All it takes is for somebody to go in your face, close to you. You could be walking by a store, you could open a front door, and there's suggestion in the energy. In other words, when people are under its influence, they will do what you tell them to do. That's why it's so popular in South America. They tell people, hey, go empty your bank account, give me your car, give me your keys, let me have sex with your wife. They do all kinds of shit like this. I have a feeling that Anne was under some sort of hypnotic suggestion. So however you want to word that, I actually felt that from the way she was driving. I don't believe that Anne in her right energy would be driving a car down the street like that. I feel that this was a hypnotic suggestion, and I feel the suggestion came from outside of Anne's energy field. I also feel that they were trying to shut down a tremendous amount of information that was about to come out. Has nothing to do with the movie she was doing, has nothing to do with any movie she had been doing, had in the works. She literally was about to start speaking. I feel that she had gotten her strength back. I feel that she had decided that she was going to tell people what she knew and what she experienced, and she was coming into a very dynamic, strong element in her life. And by the way, on a particular level, and this is so hard for her children, to lose a mother when you're a teenager is horrific, and a young child or teenager. What I'm going to say with this though is I feel like Anne's energy is stuck. It's not free at the moment. It's stuck, captured. I also feel like parts of her personality were taken from her. And this is a very strange thing to say. And I don't know anything about her to know if this is it. But as I was focusing on her energy, I got that she'd been experimented in her womb area. Okay, so in the cervix area with her, she was having issues in that part of her body. I don't know if anybody can verify that or not verify it. I have no idea. But I can see them picking pieces of that part of her body in order to replicate it. So I feel a little bit like she may have been experimented on in her life, or like people that say they had alien devices, implants, things put into their head. I feel that she may have been experimented with or had issues, said it, dreamt it, something about this. I feel they were a targeted family. I feel like the trauma was because the parents were in an elite cycle of hypnotic, mind-altering behavior. Think of MK and Ultra together. Think of those things together, because that's what I feel like it was. I feel like there was a predominance of this throughout her lineage, and I feel like it's a generational curse coming from her. That's about what I picked up with the energy of Anne. I do feel that she's not free. I can see her in my head. Now, when I get visions, they can be suggestive, have nothing to do with the actual person, but suggestive of the energy that that person felt. But I feel that her essence, okay, her consciousness, her essence had been captured over and over and over again. I don't feel that this was her first go around. I feel like things were captured. I feel like her passing was ordered. I feel like she was removed and they replicated her on several different occasions. I don't know if that just means in posture, in senses, in energy. In other words, she said this, they did this. I have no idea what that means. That's just what I was hearing when I was focusing on the energy of this video. So I'll have to wait until the energy clears because it's very unclear right now. But what I was saying is when an entity steps into you, let's say you're out at a club and you're drinking 8 shots of tequila and you're partying in a bar and you're, doing that kind of thing, dancing. Well, you're out of your body. So something can come into you. Use your eyes and your physical body to navigate their goals and wishes, meaning whatever it is they want to do. And it's usually not on the up and up. It's usually causing some kind of chaos. There's some kind of sexual perversion. There's some kind of physical perversion. There's like gluttony with food and cigarettes. They want to do everything humans do to feel, because human beings are the only ones that can feel the essence of everything we do. Okay, we feel it. The rest of the universe's energy is kind of like the Spock energy. It's like up and it's detached. Human beings are the essence of texture. We're tactile. We feel things. So somebody like Anne, who is unaware of the trauma, she's aware of it, but not to the extent of it and not for the energy behind it. And then to actually come into a circumstance where something is fighting her for control of the physical vessel, i.e. the car, fighting her for control. And it's winning, and it's taking her out through the vehicle, through the physical, through the vessel. Something else was driving the physical body, which is represented in the car and the crash. That's how I want to word that. Anyway, this is my first video on this topic on Anne, and thank you so much. And once again, my name is Sloan from SloanBella.com.